Welcome. Blessings of peace and love. Greetings. We are here. Reverend Lori Cardona, Reverend Lisa Benton. We will discuss and unpack issues related to A Course in Miracles, specifically a presentation that was a throwback Thursday that we presented from Miracles with a Twist. 2020. It was back in the day. It was back in COVID days. And I was saying, were those the dark days, or was it just because I didn't know how to run a live stream and I did this class when it was in the darkness as night was falling? So we would like to revisit that particular podcast and see how it affected Reverend Lisa Benton, having heard it twice now, once in 2020 and here 3 years later. So let's do that. But first we begin by being in prayer together. So we take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, put your hand on your heart. And with your hand on your heart, give thanks for this opportunity to be in the present moment, to be focused, to be connected, heart to heart with one another. As we look back over these years, these 3 years that have unfolded from the time of COVID to this time of awakening out of our spiritual incubation, as we have learned to do better and be better, to rise higher, pray harder, love steadily, and forgive readily on this very sacred path. We give humble thanks for having survived, for having risen up, for having decided to say yes and to be willing to be the voice of kindness and compassion in this world, to be the hands, the feet, the movement of spirit through us as we step into the light and share the light and embrace the light together as mighty companions, kindred spirits, brothers and sisters, and even strangers. We extend the energy of our heart out. And with another nice deep breath, we enter into this present moment with gratitude. Hello, Gadi Lisa.
Hello, Rev Lo. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and giving us a deep dive into that period of time, 2020.
Yeah, and what a different time it was. And when I see these videos of that time, I can't help but go back and think about that time, and at the same time look at where I am right now. And that is exactly what I saw and heard on Thursday. There were names brought up like Libby and Ernesto, who we know are no longer with us. Pam,
I know.
They're with us, but not with us.
Yeah.
Message didn't include Pam. I don't know. She might not have written in or whatever, but our buddy Pam has passed, and so so much has taken place. Of course, in 3 years, usually a lot does take place. But I thought about the isolation and how that can be so monastic or frightening or lonely. And for me, I was blessed to know that I was blessed to be with my life partner, my husband, someone I've been with for 43 years, 40 years at that time. We had a boat. We were able to go out when other people weren't able to go out because boats had different rules, because you were out in the air with no one around you. Still had to wear a mask, but we were allowed to do that. And we had a great neighbor who left notes on all our doors in our community and said, meet me outside at 6 o'clock and we're gonna, in front of your car, and we're gonna get healthy. And she was a bodybuilder, and every night at 6 o'clock we would get in our gym clothes and we go out there and we got the living tar kicked out of us by this bodybuilder, this beautiful, stunning bodybuilder. and I was thinking of that. And then as I thought more about it, I thought about how my dearest and closest friend who knew me before I knew me, who felt me in my mommy's belly, was diagnosed with ALS and died through COVID. And the one thing was that she and I were so close spiritually, mentally. We grew up from kids to adults and having kids and grandkids and all that. And but one thing we did was we set up a telephone call every night at 6:30. And we prayed and we talked and we just enjoyed each other, or we cried, or we did whatever. And that was something that we would not have done every single night. My auntie and I were very close, and we could go months without chatting or whatever, and then we could spend days on end just chatting. But this was something very holy and very special, and it was something that wouldn't have happened. And we were able to discuss her dying and what it was doing to me, what it was doing to her, what it was doing to her children and families and us. And so that there were many blessings. My whole point is there were many blessings throughout COVID and many tragedies. I was not able to be with her. Our beloved Pam's mother-in-law was dying in Canada, and they couldn't go see her. And so, I mean, these things we heard all the time. Domestic violence went up because people were just getting on each other's nerves and all of that. So what came to my head was a class I had taken with a friend. She was a friend of mine, and she just wanted to teach me and this other woman this class that had helped her in her lifetime. And it was called Experiencing God. And one of the titles was, "Don't just do something, stand there." That is the direct opposite of everything my mother ever said to me. I wish I had a nickel for every time she said, "Don't just stand there, go do something, read a book, go outside, play with your brothers and sisters, whatever, get out of here." But during COVID, we had so much time to not do something and to stand there. And that's where the monastic view comes in for me. Now, for me, that's what it was. It was an opportunity to go deeper, to spend time with A Course in Miracles, with spiritual books, uplifting books, novels that made me happy, just to enhance and deepen my connection with the divine. There were things that went on that weren't so great, but that was a wonderful opportunity for me. And one of the things that someone addressed on Thursday was she had asked if prayer was the way to go from darkness to light. And you had said that prayer was a very important tool, but it was a tool in our tool belt. And so I thought about, that made me think about prayer and how often I did Tonglin, which is a way of taking in the pain of the world or a person or whatever, a situation, breathing that in, holding it in my heart and sending out love and peace and comfort. And Metta, where I just say, I wish you well, I wish you health, I wish you safety. This can be, again, for a person or a community or whatever, just sending that out. This is what I send to you. And then there's Ho'oponopono with the 4 words. I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, in any order. But you can do that anytime, alone, in a group, anywhere. And it's so powerful. Prayer is so powerful. And I learned that not only I learned of Ho'oponopono from seminary. I learned of Metta and Tonglin from a spiritual director many years ago, and I learned how to put it all into practice with A Course in Miracles and continue to do that. So I think for me, what I just loved about seeing Thursday's class was I was able to grieve in my heart for those who aren't with us anymore and still have them with me in that class. It was just you, but I knew they were watching. And it was like we were all watching.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all looking back on it, you know?
Mm.
And that was so beautiful. And I also can bring what I learned into my life today so that I can be a better vessel, a cleaner vessel so that God can fill me up with love and I can express that love in a much deeper way than I could, let's say 3 years ago.
Mm.
And again, I want to say, I understand there was terrible stuff that went on during that. We had tremendous loss of life. It was just, and many people were just so lonely. And that's where prayer comes in. We can pray for people that we don't even know who they are, but we know that there's somebody out there with a broken heart. So we send our metta to their broken heart, or we send our love to their broken heart. So I think the key for me was, don't just do something, stand there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that is what our lessons are all about, really. And if we do that, we may not see the change, but when someone shows us a video in our daily lives, we might not see the change. But when we see a video from 3 years ago and know what we're thinking and feeling, we know there's been enlightenment, there's been change. And we are all different. We all experience the same experience. We all experience this beautiful symphony or this freaky symphony in a different way, but we're all a very specific part of it. And we need to be who we are, the best that we can be at the time, honor our divinity and be grateful, and sometimes just don't stand there and don't do anything.
Yeah.
Just be who you are, and that will evolve, and it'll be beautiful, and it will empower. I can be me, and that makes a difference in the world if I'm authentic, kind, and loving.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes, and this month I put 2 Throwback Thursdays, and both were for 2020, and it almost seemed like part 1, part 2, because they were both in my little chapel room. They were both with Ernesto as my co-host and my altar boy. I had one human assist also in each one of them, and it was the learning curve. I didn't know how to Zoom at the time. You know, Zoom is also an amazing thing that brought us all together around the world during that time. But I didn't know how to do that at the time. I really didn't know how to live stream. I didn't know how to do lighting. I didn't have the O-ring light or any of that. So, you know, I'm kind of like in the darkness, and it was sort of a metaphorically, you know, correct, you know, because it was such a dark time. And yet we were so persistent and insistent in finding ways to connect. And I think that was the amazing thing about the human resilience and spirit during COVID, is that we found ways to connect. And even in our nursing home, I was working in the nursing home for all of 20 and to the end of 2021. We were still, even though 21 started seeing the lifting of restrictions, we weren't having lifting of restrictions in healthcare. And, you know, we had a COVID unit, and we had, you know, people coming to windows and, you know, talking on phones through the window so that they could see their loved one, like refusing to stay away, refusing to disconnect. You know, we found ways to make those connections. We had FaceTime and WhatsApp and Messenger and, you know, all these appointments that we would keep running around the building trying to make sure that people had connections with one another. And I love the idea of don't just be doing, stand. And I take that 2 ways. One, stand for something. take a stand for something. But I also take it as the stillness, which is what that particular comment was about. Can you be still in the chaos? Can you be still in the madness? And COVID put us in a position to have to do that. But one of the things that I did while I was the chaplain at the nursing home is that in addition to all the running around that everybody was doing, every day at 12 o'clock, I would make an announcement over the loudspeaker and say, whoever is available to take 3 minutes of stillness, come to my office. And I would stand in front of my office, I had a little speaker. I would play a beautiful song. The Blessing is mostly what I would play. I started doing some other songs in time, but people really got to get into the comfort of hearing the same song over and over again. And the Blessing also meant a lot to you because it comes from a prayer that you used to pray with your auntie. And I don't even think you knew at the time that was the song I was using every day at 12. The Lord bless you and keep you, may his face shine upon you. And people would just I would hear people running down the hall, nurses, CNAs, sometimes doctors, patients in wheelchairs, and I would start that song, and we would all bow our heads and we would listen. And usually when it was over, somebody would say a prayer. Either if I didn't say a prayer, somebody else would say a prayer. And then they would all go back to the busyness of their day. And it's very, very busy. And when being a healthcare worker during COVID was probably twice or 3 times the amount of work that a healthcare worker normally had to deal with because of the restrictions and because of the many changes that had to be done. And I admire them greatly. I was not a hands-on healthcare worker, medical person. I was a support person as a chaplain. I was there assisting in any way they needed me, in addition to doing room visits. But then I became the point person for all outside visits. So I had to make sure everybody was properly covered and then uncovered. So the stress was beyond anything we could have imagined because we had never had that experience before. There were in healthcare facilities throughout the country, there are disaster plans for just about everything you can think of, depending on what part of the country. Whether it's the middle of the country, tornadoes, or here, hurricanes. We had active shooter. We had tornado, earthquakes in other parts. Nothing for a global pandemic. Nothing. So everything had to be done on the fly, And so I'm just saying all that because the opportunity to be still wasn't quite as available for healthcare workers. And so we had to find that stillness, but we still had, especially in Florida, we had curfews and we had a lot of restrictions that we had to live by. And so it was wonderful to be able to go out on a boat with you and Paul, or just go sit on the outskirts of the beach, because sometimes the beaches were closed as well. And to really be able to be the person standing, not just doing, and as a healthcare worker, we would come home and, sort of like disinfect ourselves, because you didn't want to be wearing the same thing. And it was such an opportunity to just be in touch with humanity, to be in touch with what is the whole world going through right now. It's not just us. And so many times we think it's just me, this is just me, or this is just us, and what am I doing? Why do I have to go through this? And it wasn't like that. There were some complainers, but for the most part, it was an opportunity to connect with everyone globally. Like, we're all going through this. Can we find a way? Can we get an understanding for what's going on? Can we find a way to take care of each other and to be mindful of what might happen when you take your mask off and cough? It was a way of heightening our awareness of our need to be responsible for each other and for ourselves. And so, don't just do, take a stand, or just stand and be still and be mindful. Have mindfulness in your daily way of being. Yeah, and I think that, we've lost so many, but like you said, they're still there watching part 2, watching the reboot of 2020 as I presented it in 2023. And I truly did feel their presence as I watched it. It's always bittersweet, there's always some tears. It's always such a poignant thing, especially, holding up Ernesto, and he's so like brand new, that loss, or just throwing out Libby's name in the middle of something. Hey, thanks, Libby. And, you know, I don't know how long it'll take for us to heal that part of our hearts, but at least we know that that part of our hearts is filled with them, you know. And so, like so many people had losses these past few years. So anyway, thank you for that. Thank you for all of that. We just have to remember at any given time when we're starting to get agitated or bothered by something that this is now, and this is our opportunity at any given time to be a blessing and to rise higher, you know, and that we can be a voice for a better what the Course would say, a new way of seeing things, you know, a shift in perspective. Yeah. And so that's our goal here, you know, as mighty companions, you know, as spiritual community. And you were telling me recently that, you know, you weren't doing your lessons every day. And then I said, well, you're living them. And that's what really matters. What matters is that you live them. You're walking the talk. And I appreciate you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to end, and I don't know where I even found this, but I've had it. And it seems to me to just be perfect because I don't know, it just spoke to me and I decided that this would be what I would like to share with everyone today. And it's by Daniel Barenboim, and he is an Israeli retired conductor and pianist. And he said, I always maintain that playing in an orchestra intelligently is the best school for democracy. If you play a solo, the conductor and everybody in the orchestra follows you. Then a few bars later, the main voice goes to another instrument, another group, and then you have to go back into the collective sound. The part of the playing in an orchestra is being able to express yourself to the maximum, but always in relation to something else that is going on. And I thought that was so beautiful. And it embraced our individuality and us as a collective symphony. We are a symphony, and each note and each stanza matters. So
I just want to say one more thing, if you don't mind.
No.
I don't know if I said it. I don't know if it was said in the past in one of those two Throwback Thursdays, but as you're speaking, I was reminded that if you go in early to a symphony to sit in on the practice, you're just going to hear a lot of clashing. You know, there's going to be the strings. They're all tuning up, and you know, there's the piano tuning up, and it's going to sound like chaos. It's going to like, what is all this? And then when it comes together and it sounds like such a beautiful symphony, that's the capability of humanity.
Absolutely.
You know, to come together and create a symphony.
The stick and goes like this, and it's extraordinary.
Extraordinary. Yeah, but it can also be chaotic before it comes together. And that's what we have to remember. So much of our lives, when we're in the chaos, we just have to remember we're in the process of becoming a symphony. We're in the process of participating in something very beautiful.
We're listening to him tap the little music stand.
Like, yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And
here I am, Lord. Here I am. Here's my heart.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you.